Hello, welcome to another video. Okay, here goes. So people, there's people who really like to say that you know how you're saved by faith alone. They like to say, they like to quote, "saved by grace through faith," and that is true. We are saved by grace through faith. But people twist what that means, and they try to use it as an excuse to say that we can sin, that we can sin and it'll be okay because we're saved just by faith. Now, I want to show you what that verse, Ephesians 2:8, really means. I want to go back to the biblical definitions of grace and faith. So let's look at that and see what that verse really means. Because, a quote like this, just kind of saying, "I believe in Jesus," like that. I mean, that's a statement. That statement does not have to be true. You can say you believe in Jesus. Lots of people can say, "I believe in Jesus," but it's another thing to have true living faith. So, let's get into this. Okay. Ephesians 2:8. "For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God." And this verse is true. We cannot save ourselves. Human beings, all of us have sinned. All of us have broken God's rules. And we can't save ourselves. We needed to be saved. We need God's grace to save us. And so, salvation is a gift from God. It's not something that we can earn. It also says, "not of works, lest any man should boast." I thought I would include that so that no one can accuse me of leaving out that next verse. Because no, I'm not going to leave out that next verse, because it is also true. We are not saved by works. You can't work your way to heaven. There's absolutely no way to do enough good works that you'll be good enough to make it into heaven. That will never work. And that's just not how it works. You can't get to heaven like that. And I am not trying to preach works salvation here. I don't want to spread that. Definitely not. I'm not in support of works salvation. I'm in support of salvation by faith. But I say that it has to be real faith. It has to be living faith. It's not enough just to say, "I believe." So, I'll show you. Let's get into this verse more in depth. Ephesians 2:8. "For by grace are you saved through faith." Okay, so what is it that saves us? Now, do not confuse grace with mercy, because it's not the same thing. Let's look at what is the actual definition of grace. Okay. Graciousness of manner or act, abstract or concrete, literal, figurative, or spiritual. It says, especially, the divine influence upon the heart. And this is important here, and its reflection in the life. That is what God's grace does for us. God's grace changes us. Because God is righteous, and sin cannot enter heaven. Sin cannot know God. You cannot be a sinner and get into heaven. You just can't, because God is righteous and God is just. God will not let a sinner into heaven. And so he saves us by his grace. By his grace, he takes us away from that so that we're saved. That's how he saves us, by changing us, by changing our heart, which has a reflection in our life. That's the grace that saves us. We're not saved just by God saying, yeah, okay, you're saved now. We're saved by him changing us. Because unless he changes us, we cannot get into heaven, because sin can't get into heaven. And so he saves us by making us not sinners anymore. He saves us by making us new. If any man is in Christ, he's a new creation. He's a new creature. And you can't be born again. You can't be a brand new creature and still be the same old sinner doing the same old things. You cannot just keep on sinning and say that you're born again. It's not how it works. God saves us by changing us. That's the very definition of grace. So how do we get that grace that saves us? How do we get that? Through faith. Let's look at the definition of faith. Okay, faith. Persuasion, that is credence. Moral conviction. Reliance upon Christ for salvation. Now, some people want to make it just that, like all that faith is relying upon Christ for salvation, like admitting that you can't save yourself. And it is important to know that you can't save yourself and to only rely on Christ to save you. But what people leave out is that true faith in Christ is also obeying him. So look, assurance, believe, faith, fidelity. Fidelity, obedience. That is faith. Seriously, you cannot have faith without being faithful. Faithfulness to God is obedience. It's fidelity. It's loyalty to God. You cannot have faith without doing what he says. I mean, people have really twisted things. Like they say that you can have faith without having faith, that you can have faith but not do anything that Jesus says, even though the very definition of faith says that, it says fidelity. That's important. We must be obedient to God. But people say that you don't have to and you can have faith still. They say that you can have faith without being faithful. How can this be possible? How can you have faith without having faith? And they also say that you can be a Christian without following Jesus, without doing what he says. What kind of Christian is that? The definition of Christian is a disciple of Jesus. Christians are supposed to be followers of Christ. That's what a Christian is. But they say you can be a Christian without obeying him. They say you can be a Christian. Oh, man, it's just ridiculous. You can't have faith without having faith, and you can't be a Christian without being a Christian. So, it's time to decide right now. Like, are you gonna really be a Christian and follow Jesus, or are you gonna just play religious games and say that you believe, but not get that grace? Because if God is not changing you through his grace, it's because you don't have real faith in him. We are only saved by this grace, by God changing us. And no, it is not of our own works. It's not of works, lest any man should boast. We're not getting saved by working. We're not working so that we'll get saved. But simply obeying God is not works. And we must obey God. That is just faith. We must have